Thank you so much for joining us here on Parenting Playbook with Maureen Kyle on Fox 8 CLE+. It is go time for parents. This is it. The wish lists are made. The holiday sales are, if they haven't already been posted, they're about to go and flood your inbox. This is the shopping season for the holidays. Unfortunately, that means it's also spending season. One of the biggest times of year that we are just spending, whether it's credit cards or maybe you've saved up over the year. No matter what, that wallet is getting a workout. We are going to be talking about spending. We're going to be talking about budgeting. What do you do if you blow the budget? But first, let me give you an idea. We're actually not going to be spending as much maybe as we have in the past. That's according to experts. This holiday season, experts are predicting a slight drop in overall consumer spending. That's all thanks to tariffs, increased prices on goods, the things that we've been seeing for the past couple of months. PricewaterhouseCoopers predicts a 5% drop in spending year over year. They say people are going to be more deliberate with their gift giving. That means we are going to pick out an item. We're going to keep an eye on that price and buy that specific item, a lot less splurging. Still, the average person spends $1,552 on the holidays. And if you have kids or a big family, obviously that's more. That budget is very flexible depending on your family members, who you're buying for, what you're buying, what's on those wish lists. All these things take a little planning, and then also who doesn't splurge, overspend, and then regret it. We're going to talk about all of that. I want to welcome Katie Bryan with Legacy Wealth Advisors. Katie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, no problem. This is such a fun topic.
It is. It's fun, but it's also a big stressor. In fact, it's one of the biggest stressors most people identify around the holidays is the spending and the financial burden that the holidays bring. Do you get a lot of people talking about that around this time of year?
Yeah, everybody is always asking me how do we best save for the holidays and for gifts. And just, as things go up and as your kids get older, those gifts tend to get more expensive. So it's trying to figure out what's most important. So yeah, we get this question quite a bit around the holidays.
Right. And so let's talk about the best way to approach it. Let's pretend, blank slate, maybe, maybe we have saved, maybe we haven't. What do you think is the best approach to the holiday season? If we had, if we could rewind the clock at all, I'm sure it's saving more in advance, but how do you prepare for the holiday season?
Yeah, so you're right. It definitely is. The earlier you can think about planning and starting your budget for the holidays from the beginning of the year till now is the best. But I would say that's probably a small percentage of Americans do that. Most people get kind of, into their year and then all of a sudden Halloween comes, now we're into Thanksgiving and people are like, oh no, I didn't save enough for Christmas or for the holidays. And so the earlier you can start, the better. Where I always think, and I always tell clients to go to, is start easy. Make a spreadsheet or write it down on a piece of paper. Do whatever you do that makes it easy for you to where you can say, these are the people I want to give gifts for. Make that list first. Who are the people you want to give a gift to? Then the second piece of that would be, okay, how much do I want to spend towards each of those people? So I might have second or third cousins that maybe I'm only going to give a $10 gift card to, but for my kids, maybe I'm spending a lot more on them. So I'm really kind of dividing them into different places of how much I want to spend and who I want to spend on. So that's always the first part. If you're an Excel person like me, it's a great thing to make a spreadsheet and put that into Excel. If you like to do an envelope system where you have an envelope and you put their names on and you put a different amount of cash in each of them, that's a great way to do it. And then, using prepaid credit cards oftentimes allows us to not overspend too.
What's funny is even on my way here, I saw a neighbor, right before we did this recording, because she asked me, where are you going? What's the topic today? I said, budgeting. And she goes, it's so funny. I was just asking my husband, what's the budget? And he looked at me and says, I don't know. What's the budget? So what's that conversation that we're having? Let's say a family has kind of earmarked or they know kind of what they want to spend. What's that conversation you should have between spouse, significant other before the shopping even starts?
Yeah, so I think it comes back down to the list. So if you start to make the list first and then saying, hey, depending on your kids' ages or who you're purchasing for, of what that cost could look like. And then going back to the foundations of your own budget. And most Americans don't really have their own budget. So even just having your budget for the month to say, we know this is what the paycheck is coming in. These are our fixed bills going out. What is left over really should be the budget towards the gifts and the other discretionary items. But that's really hard around the holidays. So it is having that conversation of this is what we think it could look like. This is what we have. Where's the happy medium if we're over budget already just on paper? Or are we willing to put it on a credit card? And if we do, can we pay it off in a relatively quick manner?
Let's talk about that credit card because that's how
Yeah.
some people operate. Some people think, okay, we'll buy it now and then we pay it off December or January at this point, February. Is there a good approach to when you put it on a card and then how do should we feel guilty about that or is that a type of approach to paying for the holidays?
It's definitely a type of an approach. And so you have to be really careful with credit cards. So the things to understand when you have a credit card are one, what is the interest rate that you have to pay for that credit card? You also might want to know if there's an annual fee because those are typically due in December or January a lot of times as well. So is that going to be part of the budget that we need to budget towards? So for credit cards, you just want to understand those two things right away. Unfortunately, the credit card game is really a game, and it's really a behavioral game because we are very much a society of we want it now, and we will pay for it later kind of society. The problem is sometimes we don't think about how long it's going to take us to pay for it later. We might not have the money in the bank to be able to pay off the credit card. So let's just say we do our budget strategy and we have our list and we know what we want to spend and we don't have that money in the bank, so we put some of that on the credit card, but we still have to figure out when is that money going to come to the bank to be able to pay off that credit card. So it's really understanding how long it's going to take, how much over budget you can go, or how much you want to stay within a budget. I think we're human beings most of the time, so most people will probably go over budget a little bit. I don't know people that really are like, I stuck to the budget or I even came under budget around the holidays. It's really difficult, especially with everything flying at us from social media and, just walking into a store. There's always an extra something. So if you go over budget, even set that in your budget of like, okay, I want to spend 2,000 or 1,500, but if I go to 2,000, we're still okay. But if we go to 2,500 or 2,500, then we're really going to be paying for it for the rest of the year. So really understand those
Yeah.
parameters.
We'll get into the emotional in just a minute, but is there, when we're talking about credit cards,
Hmm.
is there a time frame that is just it's too long? Like if you're thinking, okay, I can pay this off by February, that's fine. But is there a time frame where you start to get into that dangerous area where it's not worth it?
Yeah, so if you have a 0% interest rate card, it's not as big of a deal, right? Because you can pay a little bit off. You're not paying any extra for those dollars that you took out. So most people, I would say, should probably be able to pay off all of their holiday funds by the end of February at the latest. And that allows you then to start to plan for the rest of the year and for the next part of the year. If it starts to drag on, though, and you're 6 months in or even a year in, then you're going to start to eat into the next year's budget already for the next year's holidays. And I'm sure other things are going to come up along the way, like tires going on a car, new furnaces, roofs, whatever needs to be done when life happens. So the sooner you can pay those off, and I always say February is probably like the end all be all date if you really can. If you can't, it can get a little bit hairy.
So let's talk about the emotion behind it too, because I think that's where people tend to overspend. Let's
Yeah.
start first with that desire to make everything so magical. And it's in the advertisements, it's in our email, it is in, whatever we've built up in our mind of like, gosh, I just really want everybody to be happy and joyous and blah, blah, blah. Like how much do people fall into that trap while spending?
Oh, for a lot. I mean, you go on social media and you see these beautiful trees and, all the decorations in the front yard and all these things. And so it is definitely part of the budget. The problem is that if we are budgeting just for gifts, and we haven't budgeted for the decorations and the food and all that stuff, that's where we start to find ourselves in trouble on our credit cards later on.
Hmm. So, how do you combat that? Like, what would you recommend to people when you're online, you're on your social media accounts, or maybe you get that ad where, it pops up? It happened to me. I think I even used this as an example in one of our other shows where an email popped up and it was the most beautiful ornaments I've ever seen. And so I went to my husband and I'm like, how much is too much to spend on ornaments? And then I had to take a step back. We had a conversation. But, there's that emotional, that dopamine hit when
Yes.
we do see something that we want. How do we
Yes.
how do we take that step back?
I call it shopping amnesia because what I find is I'll see something like ornaments, which I know in my logical mind I have 1,000 of, right? But I see these beautiful, I'm like, I need more ornaments. So, couple different tactics that you can use. If you're online, maybe save them, heart them, put them in the wish list, but try to wait 24 hours before you purchase them. And sometimes just that time to regroup will allow you to say, you know what? I really don't like those as much as I thought, or I really don't need those as much as I need something else. The other question to ask yourself in those dopamine instances would be, if I get this, what am I giving up on the other side? So that could be for me if I'm saying, oh my gosh, I really want to get this new sweater. This is great. I would love it. I see it on Instagram or whatever. But if I buy the sweater, that means that I have to decrease the amount I'm paying for gifts for my kids or for my husband. So I really want to do that. So sometimes it's that balance of just asking your question, because you're right. When we get that dopamine hit, it kind of takes over the whole brain. But when we start to ask ourselves more logical questions, it's a little easier.
Hmm.
When we are in the stores, I do what I call pocket shopping, which I know is really strange, but I put my hands in my pocket when I start to find that I'm touching everything and I'm just like, I'll put this in my basket. Because if I put them in my pockets, then I know every time they come out, I have to think about what purchase I'm actually making. And again, is this something I really need, or is this something that I just want?
I can think of a few stores that would be really beneficial
Oh,
in.
yeah, like everyone I go into pretty
Every
much now.
single one, but especially some of those that have literally everything in them.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
here's another pitfall I think that a lot of people experience around the holidays. The Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all year we hear that these are the best deals on items. So I
Mm.
know I've done it. So I know everybody watching and listening has done it too, where you think, okay, this is the lowest price it's going to be all year. I need to buy it now or else I'm paying more for it later. But then we overspend. So talk to me about that. Are there instances where we do, take advantage of the price, but is there a price we pay on the back end?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to A, do you have the funds already sitting in the account to be able to pay for something that maybe is a larger purchase item or an item that you're waiting for to go on Black Friday? I think the issue now with Black Friday is it's kind of like Black Friday all month long. So then you're not sure, like, is this really the lowest price? But I think the other piece of it is just going back to, if I put this on a credit card, again, how long am I going to have to pay for this over time? And can I make that payment every single month? So a great example is if I have $2,500 on my credit card, and let's just say it's at 16% interest rate, and I only pay $200 a month on that because that's what I can afford in my budget per month, I'm going to take almost a year to pay for that item. And again, I have to ask myself, is that item something that I really need, want? And if it is, then maybe that makes sense in regards to purchasing it on that Black Friday where it may be a lower cost.
Yeah,
Or
because
trying to do maybe even a 0% credit card, or sometimes they have deals as 0% credit cards you can open with their store.
right. I think a lot of people don't want to do the math on that. Is there an
Hmm.
easy way to kind of figure out, am I saving by buying it now, or will this sit on my credit card? Is that too much of a subjective calculation, or is there an easy way to kind of think about?
No, they can literally, like, if you are just looking at pure cost with interest versus not with interest, then you would just look at your annual percentage rate on the credit card. You take that and divide it by 12, and then you multiply that per the balance every single month and add that to the balance versus what you're spending or what you're paying off each month. And that will show you, and you can do it very easily in Excel. You can do it any kind of spreadsheet or software.
Mhm.
You probably can even go online now and just put in, I have this credit card balance with zero or with 12 or 16%, and it will tell you how long it will take you to pay that over the years.
Yeah.
And again, if it's over like a couple months, then you probably are over budgeted on that item.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to have more with Katie Bryan when we return. We're going to talk about maybe teaching your kids how to think of money this time of year. And also, when you do find yourself in that hole, what are the steps that you take in January when we all have to go on that diet? We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. You are watching Parenting Playbook with Maureen Kyle, and today we are talking with Katie Bryan with Legacy Wealth Advisors. And Katie, we were talking before the break about all the ways to not be tempted and maybe, try to stick to that budget. But let's just say it's January now, and I'm getting those bills from the holidays, and I might have thought I stuck to the budget, but wow, I really didn't. What do you think is the first step somebody should take if they feel like they have really overspent and they are in a major hole?
Yeah, and it happens all the time. That's why credit cards make so much money. But yeah, it happens all the time. So if you're in that predicament, then what I would recommend is one, go through your budget for the month. And what that means is to look at the income coming out and then your fixed expenses first of what you have to pay for rent or mortgage or car payment, the things that you need to survive and to live. And then everything else is kind of what we would call discretionary. That would be lattes, maybe specialty foods, entertainment, dining out, things that aren't necessary for your lifestyle. And sometimes you have to take a hard look at those and say, if I can cut some of those just for a few months, will I be able to pay off my credit cards a little bit faster? And typically the answer is yes. First place I usually go is lattes because they're very easy. Most people get them. They're only $3 to $5 per latte that you get, but if you get them 5 times a week, that's anywhere from $60 to $80 a month that they could be using towards paying off the credit cards.
So then what do we do to make sure that we're saving throughout the year? Let's say it's January, and we know that the holidays is going to be where we have our biggest, I don't know, money hemorrhage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend if somebody is going to really plan far in advance? How do they look at budgeting throughout the year to make sure that there's not overspending? And I don't want to even just point to just the holidays, but maybe in general, somebody's or New Year's resolution is, I'm going to be smarter with money this year.
Yes, that's a number one resolution for a lot of people is trying to get financially stable or putting together a budget. So you always want to budget annually versus monthly. And that's because a lot of people think of paychecks coming in month to month, which I know I just talked about from a paying off credit cards. But when we're putting together our budget, we want to think annually because so many things come up. We're talking about holiday gifts, but you have, your presents for birthdays and anniversaries and things that you don't really think about on a month to month basis. A lot of times we have bills that come in from home and auto insurances and things that maybe are quarterly payments that we don't think about till that month. So when we're thinking about annual budgeting, you want to put everything that you pay for, personal, hairdressers, care, all medical bills, all of that stuff on one sheet and look at it from an annual perspective and divide it by 12. And that's really your monthly budget towards each one of those different items. And gifts would be part of that item. So if I'm spending $1,500 on holiday gifts, I should make sure that I have that in my budget and I'm saving a little bit over time every single month. So when that time comes, I'm not scrambling to figure out where those dollars are.
Yeah, I love it. So this time of year is also great. I have, I have to explain to kids that, Santa's one thing, but,
Yep.
gifts from mom and dad, we stick to a budget. You can ask Santa for certain things, all of that. But what do you think we can teach kids this time of year, depending on their ages, on budgeting and spending in general?
Oh, it's a great question. So for probably kids who are maybe even 6 till teenage years, it's a good time to teach them about money, and you can do it in a variety of different ways. But one way that I think works really well is to give them $25, $50, whatever, appropriate for their age. And if they have siblings or cousins, or even for a parent or grandparent, have them purchase one item for that person. And if that person has a list, then they have to go through the list and figure out what they can and can't afford. And sometimes it's very surprising to them, especially if it's like a video game or something like that, where they think, oh, I can go buy that video game. But then they realize they're short $30 because the video game is 70 and they don't have that much. So that helps them realize maybe the quality of what they have to buy, as well as if they can afford it and how far $1 really can go or not go.
I find in my household, this is the time of year where they start to, we do similar things. They want to buy sibling gifts. And so then we start to talk about, how much things are. And this is when it kind of piques their interest on money, spending. I have this. Can I buy this? Is it on sale? So then as we head into the new year, and if we are going to, as a family, budget a lot more or become more financially stable, how do you recommend involving the entire family?
Oh, there's a couple ways. So one is you can use fake money. Like I love using Monopoly money to say, like, let's just say, kids, this is the amount that's coming in per month. And we're going to take this amount of money away for all of the fixed needs, for the roof over your heads, for the groceries. This is what's left over. And if you have one, two, three, four kids, then you could say, and this is the portion you would get, if we're putting money towards you. And it's very interesting because the visual of the money kind of starting big and then going small really does help them understand dollars a little bit more. You could even give them, if they're older, you might want to give them access to a credit card. Now, again, this could be a prepaid card. It could be a card that you heavily monitor it, but you want to make sure that, it makes sense for your family. But just teaching them, money doesn't grow on trees, and this is really the cost of what you're purchasing.
What do you think, learning these lessons early, does that set our kids up for more success as adults when it comes to financial health?
Typically, it does. The philosophy of finance is very interesting because if you're too stringent with children in regards to, like, you can only have this much and we can't do anything extra, and you're too stringent, sometimes children, and you see this in our adult friends and our adults, they go the other way when they are adults, where they'll overspend because they didn't have the flexibility to spend. Sometimes we go the complete opposite way, where there's so much flexibility that they have no idea what the concept of money is. But finding that happy medium of letting them learn their lessons at a young age, where it doesn't impact their credit, where it doesn't impact really how much debt they're in, really will help set the stage. So let them make some mistakes early on. If they overspend, if you do give them a credit card and they overspend their budget by $20, have a conversation about that. Make them pay you over time, whatever that is for your family. But that is really what helps set the stage, is letting them use it, make some simple mistakes early on, and then that carries forward later on.
I love that. A lot of schools now have personal finance classes,
Yeah.
and my sixth grader is no exception. She is going to personal finance class twice a week. That has sparked her interest in investments. She has been talking about, well, can I get in, can I put money into the stock market or whatever? Are there ways that we can involve kids to learn about even investments and looking into stocks, bonds, whatever that is? What lessons do we teach around that?
Yeah, so you definitely going to the personal financial planning class at school is great because they do talk a lot about stocks and bonds and how to do it. And they actually have a lot of the classes will have you do mock investments, so that's a fantastic way to learn. Talking with your own personal financial planners and having them go to money classes. And then there's a lot of money classes online for kids. So if you just go Google money classes for kids, there will be a lot of tutorials and fun games and things that they can learn how to manage pennies or how to manage their dollars in an online portal or game.
And you mentioned financial advisors. So this year, or this 2026, this coming year,
Yes.
what would you recommend to people? Let's say somebody has not really met with a wealth advisor. How do they start? Will that set them up this year for some financial success? How do we see some of that short-term success?
Yeah, I mean, there are all different kinds of financial planners and advisors out there. Um, but I would say you can never start too early and you can actually never start too young. So if you are just a young professional and you feel like you don't have a lot of dollars to invest, there are a lot of financial planners out there like our firm and other firms who will help guide you and get your base set or your foundation set so that as you continue to grow and you grow your wealth, we're providing education and we're also helping in the investments and portals and things. But anybody who is thinking about working with a financial professional should definitely start and do some interviews with different professionals that you're looking for expertise, you're looking for comfort, and you're looking for just making sure they do the right things that you want them to do, whether that's just investing, insurances, planning, there's all different kinds.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, Katie, this time next year, everybody who's watched is well prepared for the holidays. They have
I hope
their,
so.
I hope they have their budget ready. And I really appreciate all of the information that you've given. I know there's too many people out there. We all do it. We all go over budget. So this was wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Katie, thank you. And thanks to all of you for watching Parenting Playbook. We're going to be covering all things holidays over the next couple of weeks. So make sure you tune in for more information next week.